Tera is a free-to-play Korean-made MMORPG released in 2011 in Korea and 2012 in the West. The game features action combat, multiple races and classes, flying mounts, and a mix of PvE and PvP content, though the PvP has taken a hit in recent patches. Tera is available for the PC, PS4 and Xbox One, and also now has a PS5 and Xbox Series X release along with an updated graphics patch. I haven't played the game before, so it's all new to me, and with generally positive reviews on Steam and a seemingly active player base, I thought I'd check it out. When you launch the game through Steam, you can choose between EU and NA servers. EU has 5 PvE servers and NA has 1 PvE and 1 PvP server. I started on the EU Mistel PvE server. I did check out the NA PvP server too, but more on that later. The game has 7 races to choose from, those being Human, Kastanic, Aman, High Elf, Papori, Ellen, and Baraka, with those last 3 being gender locked. There are 13 classes to choose from. There are Warrior, Lancer, Slayer, Berserker, Sorcerer, Archer, Priest, Mystic, Reaper, which you already have to have a level 40 character to even be able to play, Gunner, Brawler, Ninja, and Valkyrie. 5 of these classes are either race or gender locked, those being the Gunner, the Reaper, the Valkyrie, the Ninja, and the Brawler. I guess if it's lore dependent, like Valkyrie's only being able to be female, for instance, then I can overlook it, but I've never really been a fan of gender and race locked classes, especially when you can't play a class like the Ninja without feeling like a pervert. I decided to go pretty basic and went with a human sorcerer. The character customization has a few basic options with a number of presets, some hairstyles, adornments, and sliders for the head. I didn't actually like any of the changes I could make, so I just kind of went with a standard preset, and I ended up with this very unattractive character. Well, at least I won't feel like a pervert. Upon loading into the world, I was instantly surprised by the number of new players running around. The game gave me some enormous yellow arrows to follow because apparently a marker on the map just isn't enough, and after doing so I found myself at the first town. Then, for some reason, after watering a magic plant, a horde of massive demon monsters attacked the town. Then, an even bigger demon monster attacked. The combat already felt engaging and very impactful. The one downside I could find was that the movement felt like a little janky at first, but I quickly got used to it. The fight was fun and I got to try out some combos for the first time, for some big flashy damage. This triggered a cutscene and alas, I was defeated. I carried on with the quest chain and in no time at all I was fighting the boss again. I finished him off quick and beginner land was finished. It was off to the main city. One of the main forms of travel in Tera is the Pegasus flight stations. You ride this kind of warp horse to travel between each of the major regions, and it's a pretty fun ride. I found myself turning off the UI and enjoying the world design. They've done a good job. It really drew me into the world and made me want to explore what I was seeing. The main city had a fair few players about, though not as many as I was hoping to see, and after a quick look around and meeting my new bosses, it was on to the next area. Once again I enjoyed the flight on the warp horse, and the new region was vastly different from what I had seen so far. The area is fairly large with lots to explore. There were players everywhere, and after a quick look around I carried on with the main story quests and soon found myself in my first solo instance dungeon. The dungeon was a good size, and I felt pretty good as I tore through the mobs until I eventually arrived at the boss. It was a good fight and although easy, did allow me to chain my combos for some massive damage. The combat in this game is really fun and well thought out, and I was already wondering what the other classes might play like. Sorcerer has a nice variety of spells including huge AoEs, teleports for mobility and some snares as well. It really lets you wreak havoc on the battlefield. Once I felt comfortable with the combat, I found I could turn off the UI for 90% of the fights for a little extra immersion, which is nice. The only times I had to turn it back on was when I was getting smacked around or stun locked a little too much by a boss and needed to check my health real quick in case I needed to pop a potion. After this, it was back to the main city, where I got a special award for being awesome from the guy that I am pretty sure is voiced by this dude from Teen Wolf, and then we were off again. It was at this point that I realised I had absolutely no idea what was going on, and instead I'd just been running around looking at all the pretty shiny things. So from then on I made sure to start reading the dialogue. There is a story there and it seems to be pretty fleshed out. The game has a pretty interesting world, being that the land formed on the bodies of two sleeping titans. While they slept, their dreams eventually became reality, giving birth to the life that now inhabits Tera. I carried on nuking my way through the quests and another dungeon, which was another blur of flashy spell effects that finished with a multi-boss chain at the end that was pretty fun. As I carried on questing, I started to get into the story. I won't give anything away here, but there's enough twists and turns to keep you interested. The cutscenes are all pretty flashy and honestly kind of cheesy, but not so much that I felt the need to skip any. The questing did begin to get a little, I wouldn't say boring, but it was getting repetitive. It's standard MMO stuff: run here, kill these, open this, collect that. But the progression is steady enough that it doesn't feel too grindy or too fast. I felt that they'd Goldilocksed it and they'd got it at just the right pace. Gearing up wasn't an issue either. The game is constantly giving you new gear and enough mats to enchant it with. I'm sure this changes towards the endgame, but at the point I was at, there was no issue. The armors are all pretty cool looking and the weapons as well, and there are also costumes that you can purchase through the in-game store, and for once the store isn't always being shoved in your face. The game does have an optional subscription, and there is a quest that you can do to get 3 days free sub in an attempt to lure you in with an extra mount and a couple of buffs, but it wasn't obnoxious about it. I carried on leveling and exploring the different regions, all of which have great variety, and don't feel like repeated assets even if some are. I tried to ask people to duel with me for a little taste of the PvP available at this level, however every single person I asked declined. There is another PvP mode available, Battlegrounds, but this is now only available at level 65. At this point I did begin to wonder about the other classes and I wondered if they played any differently, so I decided to check them out. First off, I made a Papori Brawler. The character customization is better for this race, and you can choose between a whole host of different furry critters. I quickly rushed through the beginner area to unlock some skills, and found I was very glad that I hadn't chosen Brawler for my first class. I found the combat felt very sluggish, and it was honestly kind of boring compared to my Sorcerer that I'd been playing. Next up I tried the Valkyrie, and I found this to be much more to my liking. Valkyrie is actually gender locked, so I ended up choosing a Castanic female, and I got to it. The combat is far more fun as a Valkyrie. You chain together combos, and each time you hit, you leave something called a rune mark on your target, which you can then detonate later for a huge burst of DPS. It's pretty fun and nice and mobile, and I really preferred it to the Brawler. The last class I played was actually the Ninja, because I usually enjoy playing that kind of class. This class is actually race locked into that kind of lolly looking little girl race, and so unfortunately I was locked into it. I kinda hoped I wouldn't like it so that I could go back to my Sorcerer with no second thoughts, but that was not meant to be. The Ninja was by far the most fun class I'd played so far in Tera. The mobility is great and I was flashing around the battlefield in no time. The skills are unique and have great effects. The very first skill you get is straight out of Naruto, and leaves a wooden log replica in your place, teleporting you behind your target for an attack. Pretty cool. After I'd played around on the Ninja for a bit, I decided to jump over to the NA servers and check out the PvP for a bit. For this, I decided to make a gunner. There were no other players in Noobville, so I quickly leveled through, as from my understanding you have to be at least level 12 to do the open world or PK PvP. Unfortunately, I didn't see anyone for a very long time, and after following the main quest for a while hoping to find someone, I actually gave up. But what did I think of the gunner class? Well, much like the Brawler class, it felt sluggish and kind of dull to play. I am of course only judging this off the first beginner area, but first impressions are important, especially when first starting out in a game. If I'd chosen a class like this to begin playing Tera with, then I might not have lasted long. No matter how many people tell you it gets good. So what are my thoughts overall? If you're looking for some good PvE content in a world that's really nice to look at, you can't really go wrong checking out Tera. The questing is nothing revolutionary, and honestly it's kind of repetitive and a little bit boring. But there is a story there for you to follow, and although I haven't finished it yet, I have enjoyed it so far. The combat and the world design are the highlights of this game, and I can imagine it being a lot of fun to play with friends. The cash shop is there, but it's unintrusive and there is still a player base. As far as PvP goes, I was unable to find any, but I was only in the beginner areas for a little while, so I can't really attest to that. If world PvP is what you are after, then your only option is the NA server. Of course there are also the Battlegrounds, which I do hope to check out soon. Overall, I enjoyed Tera, and I do intend to keep playing, mostly to see how the story turns out, but I do also want to check out the endgame. So when I do get there, I'll make another video about it, sharing my experience. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and comment down below if there's anything that you want to add yourself that you think new players should know. That's all from me. See you in the next one.